Okay, so here is a 2015 GL450. I was driving it home on the highway a few weeks ago, and there was a distinct odor of what smelled like burning wires in the passenger compartment. Fortunately, no electrical fires or anything like that occurred. And it was followed by an error message on the display, which indicated a symbol, which indicated it was an Airmatic suspension malfunction. So I began to troubleshoot it, and here's what I came up with. So in an effort to diagnose the problem, one of the first things I did was the sniff test. Because the odor was emanating in the passenger compartment, I was sniffing around, trying to see if I could detect where the odor was coming from. And basically what I learned is that there was a Airmatic control module, which is located under the driver's seat, under the driver's floorboard, in front of the driver's seat. You have to unbolt the seat, take up the floor, and it's under a panel. Took that out, a little sniffer test. It didn't, actually took the module apart, didn't see any issues with the module. So I continued to look at other issues. There's a compressor and a valve distribution block located in the front right corner of the vehicle. And when I took the front right wheel and front fender skirt off, I could smell a burnt component. So that's where my investigation led me. And also wanted to mention that the ride height was kind of high, probably about 6 inches higher than normal in the front and the back, more so in the back, maybe 8 inches in the back. Okay, so the next thing was remove the wheel and the inner fender skirt. There's like 4 screws that retain the fender skirt here, and a couple inside, some push pins in the wheel well, and a couple of 10mm plastic nuts that retain the front half of this wheel skirt. So I chose to support the suspension, not allow the because I'm going to remove the air out of the system. I didn't want it to collapse totally on the airbags. Had an issue with that once before. They could get pinched, so I felt it was prudent to support the vehicle. It's kind of difficult to video it, but there's basically 3 push pins that are one in the bottom corner, and then on the outside lip, and then another one up here. So there's 2, 3, and then you got those 10mm bolts I mentioned, it plastic nuts, and then the fender skirt comes off. So on the back of this block, there's 2 holes for mounting the, and they're Tourex T25. But what I found was that there was like a hole burnt in the back of the block. So that appears to be my source of the burning smell that I smelt in the passenger compartment. And now it's off to replacing the distribution block. Okay, so while I believe there's a way in Eccentric, the diagnostic software, which is a standalone thing that most people don't have, if you're doing it yourself, I believe that there's a function in there to purge the system. I tried to activate the solenoid on the compressor to release the pressure, but that didn't seem to work. So I chose to crack the vent, to crack the fitting on the reservoir to purge the air out of the system, so now we're just going to wait till it cools down and we'll take it. Okay, so I started the process of moving the lines from the old block to the new block. And what I chose to do was cut the lines off and then just push the new lines into the block after you remove these little white pins. Okay, so I cut all 6 of the lines one at a time, plugging them into the new block. And without removing the brass block, I supported them and kind of pushed them in. And you know, there's a ferrule that's in line with the little ceiling part. You got an O-ring and a ferrule, and basically if you leave the brass fittings in place, all you have to do is push the clean cut lines in. They go in about a ½ an inch, so be sure you push them in far enough. Okay, so now that the block is in place, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down all of the fittings. I'm going to use 2 hands to do each one. This is a 12, the other ones are a 10, but I'm going to support the hose and tighten each one down individually. Okay, so here is the new module installed. Next I'm going to put the wheel well back on and the tire and drop it down to a supported ride height and put some air in the system and see where we are. As far as tools are concerned, you need an 8mm, 10mm socket to remove the wheel skirt, 17mm for the lug nuts, a 10 and a 12 to remove the and tighten the valve body block line, whatever you want to call them, and I use a needle nose to pull the push pins out, and obviously a sharp blade to cut the lines. Okay, so just some final thoughts. I buttoned it all up, started it up, onboard compressor kicked in. Once I had brought the vehicle down to ride height, the compressor kicked in, and took it for a ride, and everything appears to be back to normal. The malfunction in the dash display is not there any longer. While it may still be stored, it's something I can go into Accentry and resolve, but otherwise everything appears to be 100%. And ride height's been restored to normal. And looks like we're all good to go.